My father sent me a text that said only 3 words. Please come now. That was it. No explanation. No context. Just those 3 words from a man who, in my entire life, had never once asked anyone for anything. I dropped everything and drove. My name is Riley. I'm 32 years old, and I work in contract administration for a commercial construction firm. My job is turning vague promises into legally binding language. I know exactly what words mean. I know which clauses protect you and which ones quietly destroy you years later when nobody is paying attention. I learned that lesson young. When my father was diagnosed with early-onset Parkinson's at 54, our entire family shifted overnight. My mother folded her own life into his without a single complaint. She managed his medications, drove him to every appointment, researched every clinical trial, and still laughed at his jokes even when his hands shook and his voice came out softer than he meant it to. For 13 years, neither of them ever asked for help. So I decided to give it anyway. I had been saving since my first real paycheck. Not obsessively, just consistently, the way you build anything worth keeping. 2 years ago, I found a half-acre lot on a quiet lake, 90 minutes from the city. There was a small structure on it that the listing called a cottage with potential, which is real estate language for something a developer would level. But the lot was perfect. The water was dark and still, ringed with hemlock trees. I stood at the edge of it on a grey November morning and thought, my dad could sit here and watch the light change for hours and be completely at peace. I bought it. Then I did what I do. I drew up the project scope myself, hired a contractor I had worked with for years, pulled every permit personally, and built something that could truly hold them. 1 story. Fully accessible. Wide doorways. Grab bars designed to look like architectural details, not medical equipment. A wraparound porch so my father could always find a patch of sun without navigating steps. A kitchen counter at the right height for his reach on difficult days. The total came to $310,000. I prepaid property taxes for 15 years. I stocked the pantry. And I placed the deed into an irrevocable trust with my parents as the sole lifetime beneficiaries. Nobody could touch it. Nobody could sell it. For their 40th anniversary, I told them I was taking them to dinner. Instead, I drove them 90 minutes through October light to a gravel road they had never seen. When my father stepped onto that porch and looked out at the water, he was silent for almost a full minute. My mother put her hand over her mouth and whispered, "Is this real?" "Yes," I told her. "It's yours." My dad made it up those 2 steps without his cane. He stood at the railing, looked at the lake, and said, "I used to think we'd missed our chance at something like this. I thought that ship had sailed a long time ago." That weekend was the most peaceful I had felt in years. If this story is moving you the way it moved me, go ahead and hit that like button. It means more than you know. And subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this one. I should have known the peace wouldn't last. My mother, who cannot keep a secret when she is happy, mentioned the cottage during a phone call with my sister Vanessa. 3 days later, Vanessa and her husband Craig showed up at the property unannounced. I couldn't be there that weekend because of a work deadline, and I told myself it was just a visit. I was wrong. When I arrived after my father's text, I saw Craig standing on the dock, photographing the water with his phone. He was walking heel to toe along the dock edge, counting the length under his breath. He didn't even hear me pull in. Inside, my mother stood at the kitchen window with that look she gets when she is carrying too many things at once. My father sat at the kitchen table, a manila folder in front of him that I had never seen before. Vanessa was rearranging the bookshelf as if the place were already hers. Craig came in from the dock, dropped a printed sheet on the table, and explained, without hesitation, that he wanted to turn my parents' home into a short-term vacation rental. $30,000 to $40,000 a season. His management company would handle everything. Mom and Dad could visit when it wasn't booked. My father's jaw was set. "I never agreed to this," he said quietly. I set my bag down. Then I went to my car and retrieved my briefcase. I have a habit. Every personal property transaction I manage gets the same documentation treatment as my commercial projects. Everything filed. Everything time-stamped. I had brought the full file. I placed the deed on the table. The trust language was clear. Exclusive and unconditional right of occupancy for my parents, with no provision for subletting, short-term rental, or commercial use without written consent from the trustee. That trustee was me. Then I placed a legal opinion confirming the trust was valid and not challengeable by non-beneficiaries. Then a screenshot of the draft rental listing Craig had already uploaded online using photographs he had taken from the dock that very morning. Then the township ordinance showing he had no permit and faced up to $8,000 per violation. Then the cease and desist. Craig looked at the documents, then at me. We're family, he said. His charm had gone thin. Your guests, I said. And currently guests who have overstayed. They left. Not gracefully, but they left. Craig tried once more, weeks later, sending a stranger to the door with fake rental paperwork. I had cameras on the driveway, the dock, and the property line. I watched it live from my work computer, texted Craig a screenshot, and told him a deputy was already on the way. The car was gone in minutes. What I know now is this. A boundary is not a wall. It doesn't close anything. It's the frame that keeps the house from standing. I built that cottage because my father stood in a hospital corridor 13 years ago and found out his own body was going to work against him. I built it because my mother went home that night and quietly rearranged her entire life around that fact without asking for anything in return. The last time I visited, my dad was at the dock watching two cardinals he had apparently named. He turned when he heard me on the steps and said, "Sit down. Watch this." So I Saturday. My mother came out with her coffee and a blanket. The three of us stayed there for a long time without saying much. There was nothing that needed saying. If you have ever been the one who handled everything and then had to stand between what you built and the people who wanted to take it, this one's for you. Like this video if it hits something real. Subscribe so you never miss a story like this one. Holding the line is not the same as losing the family. Sometimes it's the only way to keep what matters most standing.